This is the best hike I've ever done. 15 miles, 3 iconic trails, and nonstop views you are never going to forget. It's Yosemite's Mist Panorama 4-mile loop, and today I'm taking you along for the full route, plus all the tips I wish I knew before starting. It's long, it's challenging, but if you only do one hike in Yosemite, this should be the one you do. We are kicking off this video talking about the first part of this 3-trail loop, which is the Mist Trail, and the Mist Trail takes you past 2 absolutely gorgeous waterfalls, Vernal and Nevada. The Mist Trail in particular is touted as one of the hikes that you should do at least once in your life, and I definitely feel that way after seeing it. And this one also has the perk that if you just want to do this part of the trail, you can go up the Mist Trail and then loop back down the John Muir Trail, which would make it much shorter, I think closer to around 6 miles. But then you wouldn't see the other beautiful views that I'm going to talk about later, but if you need something shorter, that's definitely an option. This is an extremely popular trail, so I would definitely recommend to start early. We hit the trail around 7 a.m. and it wasn't too bad, but there were definitely quite a few people. I've heard it just gets insane throughout the day. You can take a shuttle to get to the beginning of this trail, but if you're staying in Curry Village, I would definitely recommend walking. Where you're going to want to walk to is to the Happy Isles trailhead, and I recommend walking because it will allow you to get out there before the shuttles start running, which is a big perk, and it's also just kind of nice to warm your legs up a little bit on some flat terrain. And also, if you're staying in Curry Village, definitely make sure to check out my Curry Village video. I will link that up above for you and down below. That has a lot of information on what it's like to stay there, including maps and things like that you might find useful. Mist and Vernal trails never dry out, which is a huge perk of this trail, that if you want to see waterfalls, you can see these waterfalls any time of year, barring like snow. You're probably not going to want to do this trail if it's super icy, but if you weren't aware, Yosemite is one of the best places to go see waterfalls, and generally most people would recommend going in the spring because that's going to be when the waterfalls are flowing the strongest, and that's no different for Mist in Nevada. They're going to be a lot stronger in the spring than they are in the fall, but there will be water no matter what, which is super nice. And the Mist Trail gets its name because of all of the mist that comes off of the waterfalls. And so if you're going in the spring especially, but even early summer, I would definitely recommend bringing a rain jacket as you might get wet on this trail. We went at the end of June, and another note on that was just that it was so perfect. The weather was beautiful. It was like 80s in the valley and like low 70s kind of up higher in elevation, which was perfect. If you're doing this hike in 2025, you are going to want to note that the Mist Trail is closed during the day from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Mondays through Thursdays. And that's through the end of October 2025. But this is the 3rd year that they've been doing this. So even if you're watching this in 2026 or a future year, I would definitely double check that the Mist Trail is going to be open when you want it to be open. You can get around this closure a number of different ways. One is by starting super early and getting up through the trail before 7:30 starts. You could also get around it by taking the John Muir Trail, which I mentioned earlier, and taking that up instead of the Mist Trail. And either way, that's going to connect you to the Panorama Trail, but you're going to miss some of the beautiful views by going up John Muir, so up to you. You can also do this hike backwards, which would be starting at, really, I'm doing it backwards, I guess. The more normal route to go would be to start at the 4-mile trail, then do Panorama, and then take the Mist Trail down. And if you do that, you might hit the Mist Trail after 3:30, which would definitely put you in the window. That would make it okay. But I'll talk through why I didn't do that and why I probably wouldn't recommend that for most people later in the video. One of the great things about this trail is that there is water, potable water, that you can actually fill up your water bottles with. You don't need a filter. You don't need anything close to the beginning, and you can also fill up your water if you have a filter at the top of Nevada Falls. And there are also multiple bathrooms, 2 different bathrooms going up the trail, which you aren't really going to find, I think, anywhere else. Maybe a couple other trails might have this in the park, but I didn't see any more on Panorama or 4-mile like that. There's also a beach at the top of Nevada Falls, which was such a shock to me. It was so cool to see everybody kind of hanging out in the sand. There were definitely a lot of people in the water, which you would want to do at your own risk because You are at the top of a waterfall, but it's set pretty far back, and so it didn't seem super unsafe to me. But if I'm remembering correctly, there were definitely signs that said you shouldn't. So, do it at your own risk. But it was really fun to look at other people. I didn't get in the water myself. It just made for a super, super nice atmosphere. And by the time you get up to the top, you're feeling pretty warm and it's nice to see. But one of the key things about this hike, and one of the things that so many people love about it, is not just the waterfall. The stairs are so beautiful. There's a lot of stairs, and the way they're set in is just like no other hike I've ever done. So I would definitely recommend this trail no matter what, even if you're not going to do the full thing, although I would really recommend the full thing. The Mist Trail is just a stunning one that I do believe everyone should do at some point in their life. So once you get to the top of the trail, there are actually a lot of other trails that connect up there, including the Half Dome Trail. If you've heard, well, it's not a trail, the Half Dome hike. If you've heard of that very, very intense hike, you will take the Mist Trail up to get to that. But instead of turning left to go that way, you're actually going to turn right towards the Panorama Trail. And the Panorama Trail is super special because it's not very well traveled, so you're not going to see a lot of people. We only saw backpackers during the first part of the Panorama Trail, and then we really didn't see anyone until we got close to Glacier Point. And so if you're looking for a trail to really feel like you're out in nature, this is a great one for that. It was so peaceful and so quiet, and like the name of the trail suggests, you get to see beautiful panoramic views of the valley. One of my favorite things was watching Half Dome kind of change shape. Half Dome, depending on the angle that you look at it, looks very different. And we got to be almost at the back of it and walk around almost all the way to the front of it. And so we really got to watch that completely change shape, which was not something I expected to see, but really, really enjoyed watching. Also, I think part of the reason that the Panorama Trail isn't super well populated is that you can't access it from the valley floor. You can only access it, as far as I know, from the top of the Mist Trail or Glacier Point. And so you're just not going to see a lot of people who are staying in the valley making it all the way up there, which is a definite plus. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit out there, definitely try to find trails that aren't accessible from the valley, and that's how you're going to get some peace and quiet. And this is where we really started to feel it. I felt like the Mist Trail, our legs were fresh, and it was just like view after view after view, and it was changing, and we didn't know what to expect. And so I didn't really feel tired until we got kind of far into the panoramic trail. This portion of the hike, I feel like the views stayed mostly the same, I guess I would say. I don't know. There was less of like, oh, here's a waterfall, here's another waterfall. Like, we're getting closer to the waterfall and you can hear the waterfall coming, so you know it's going to be soon. It's a lot slower and quieter. And I think that was part of it. I mean, anyone would be tired like miles and miles into a hike like this probably, unless you're like in really great shape. But the other thing about the Panorama Trail is that I thought it was flat. Looking at a map, it looks really flat, but it's actually a very slight incline, and you feel it when you're doing miles and miles of a very slight incline. So be prepared for that. Don't be like me and expect for it to be flat, because it is not. But even that slight incline and it just being a little bit tougher was totally worth it for all of the amazing scenic views you get to see that most people don't really get to see because this trail isn't that well traveled. At the end of Panorama Trail is Glacier Point, which is a little rest stop, I guess you could say, that actually a lot of people drive to, but it feels like a huge accomplishment to hike there instead. We felt like we were on top of the world at this point. And Glacier Point is extra special because there are bathrooms, although the bathrooms when we went were so disgusting that I walked away. I was like, I don't have to go that badly. I'll be fine. So be prepared for that potentially. There's also water where you can fill up your water bottles and your water bladder if you have those. You don't need a filter or anything here for that. And at this point, we desperately needed a water fill up because the last time we had filled up was at the top of Nevada Falls. So we were very thankful for that. And Glacier Point also has a gift shop. So we walked around there a little bit, but we had already been to the Curry Village gift shop, which is where I got this cute shirt. It's actually a kid's shirt, but I love it so much. So we didn't get anything at the gift shop there, but it's an option. And the best part about Glacier Point is that there's food. They're known for having ice cream. Unfortunately, they were completely out of ice cream when we went, and so we didn't have that option, but it did look like just a bunch of deep freezers with ice cream, like prepackaged ice cream, not like homemade ice cream. That's kind of what I was picturing because of the amount that people talk about the Glacier Point ice cream. I'm sure it would have tasted great after our hike, don't get me wrong, but don't expect like fancy ice cream. The good news though was that we really didn't care that they were out of ice cream because they had so many other food options. We each grabbed a sandwich and some chips and a Pepsi, which tasted fantastic. There is nothing better than eating a meal after doing an like strenuous activity like hiking. I also felt this way after I've ran all 3 of my half marathons. Like food just tastes so good, and this was no different. The food was fan-freaking-tastic. And we also were able to stock up on electrolytes here. I think if I were to redo this hike, I would bring electrolytes with me. And honestly, I probably would have brought more food with me generally. I knew that Glacier Point would have food, and so I didn't bring too much, but I was finding that we were eating a lot of food in the morning time, like just burning a lot of calories. This is the longest hike we've ever done, and so I just didn't fully know what to expect. And so it's nice to have Glacier Point where it is so that you've already done 2 long, hard trails, and then you have Glacier Point and you're able to use that as a stop and get some extra fuel in. One note that I'll say about Glacier Point is that you're going to see like a lot of people. The views here are beautiful. It's well worth the drive, I'm sure, as well. And so if you were having a really hard time on this hike and you can't imagine hiking any further, you could try hitchhiking down. Do that at your own risk. You'd have to find someone who's going to the same location as you, or like pay them. If I don't know, I've never hitchhiked. Don't ask me for hitchhiking advice, but that's the only way that you could get down. There is technically a bus that will drive up from the village to Glacier Point, but you have to book those in advance, and they only go up one way, and then you can like hike down if you wanted to, but you aren't able to go one way from Glacier Point to the village. So just something to keep in mind. That's not something we did, and so I'm not an expert in that area, but it is technically an option, but you'd have to plan in advance for that, and it's not going to help you get down if you are already up there. The very last trail that you'll hit is the 4-mile trail. And these were some of my favorite views of the valley. You get the best view of El Cap, and you also get to see upper and lower Yosemite Falls from almost like head on. It feels like you're at the same elevation. I don't actually know if you are, but it's so fun to see all the views that you saw when you were down in the valley, but up from a higher point. I would also really recommend that if you drive to Glacier Point and you just want to see some views but not do too long of a hike, it's really not far to hike the 4-mile trail to see the most beautiful views from Glacier Point. You would just hike. You'll know when you see it. You'll like hike, and then you'll see the valley and be like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And then know that from there, the entire hike is just switchbacks all the way down. And so at that point, you could turn around and go back to your car, and you would see some of the best views. But like us, we didn't have a car. We were going to take those switchbacks all the way down. But if we ever go back to Yosemite, I don't know if we would do this full hike again, just because there are so many other amazing hikes in Yosemite. I'd love to see all of them if I could. I wish I lived over there sometime so that I could. But maybe if we went back with kids and we just drove to Glacier Point, I would definitely want to walk down to just go see the top of 4-mile trail and see those sights, because they are so worth it. It was so beautiful. So this was the only trail where I felt a little bit nervous due to heights, and I think part of that was because this is where my legs kind of started to fail me, where I felt like the whole way up until this point, where I told my feet to land is where my feet landed, and here it was like my brain and my feet were just a little bit off. I was very tired at this point, and it's also just straight drops at some point. It's really not a scary hike. I just think it was that combo of like my feet being really tired and it being such a long way down, and like felt pretty exposed through most of it, that I just had a few moments where I was like, okay, I'm not really gonna look down and I'm just gonna get through this point. And normally I'm the kind of person that is looking down. I'm looking everywhere and I'm not afraid at all. So this was a little bit different for me. So we were super duper tired at this point and needed a little something to to get us through. And so what we ended up doing was we had purchased Skittles at Glacier Point, which I'm so thankful we did. I'm probably going to hike with Skittles always from now on. And basically every 0.2 miles that we hiked, we would each eat one Skittle. And that's how we got through this hike, because it just straight up switchbacks all the way down. And the view stays pretty much the same the entire time. And you saw the best views at the very top. And so you don't really like get that much more out of it. And so the Skittles really helped us, really helped us get down. And at the end, we got to the shuttle stop right when the shuttles got there. It was the most perfect timing ever. And we were able to take the shuttle right back to Curry Village, which was super easy. And the shuttle was not full at all. And it was a Sunday. And so I was very thankful for that. The shuttle was like almost empty. You could also walk back to Curry Village. And that was kind of our backup plan if the shuttles were full or like something happened, but very thankful that we just got to take the shuttle because our legs were very tired at this point. Like I mentioned earlier, you can do this trail backwards, or I don't know whichever way you want to consider is the front way, but you can start at 4 Mile, then do Panorama, and then do the Mist Trail. But I really wouldn't recommend that for most people because that puts you going down the Mist Trail, which is just a ton of slippery stairs. And that really didn't sound fun for me, which is a big reason we did it the way that we did it. And it also would put you on the Mist Trail probably when it's really busy, because the Mist Trail is such a popular hike. And so I would really recommend starting with the Mist Trail and going up. That way you don't have to go down slippery stairs. There'll be less people, and also the views will be in front of you going up the Mist Trail. The 4 Mile Trail, the views, it's switchbacks. So like you're switching, you know, which way you're looking. So you're totally fine there. The only place where the views might be considered behind you doing it the Mist Panorama 4 Mile way is on the Panorama Trail, but it's really not that hard to just like kind of stop and look behind you a few times, and the views are still good both ways in my opinion. I also really think that hitting Glacier 2/3 of the way in instead of hitting Glacier just when you get to the top of 4 Mile is really nice too, because when you're super tired, you've already done 2 long trails, it's so great to have the pick-me-up of food, whatever else you might need, versus if you make it all the way up 4 Mile and all the way through Panorama, you're gonna be pretty gassed by the time you hit Mist, and there's no pick-me-up there. We did run into one other group doing this hike, and the route that they did was that they drove up to Glacier Point, hiked down the Panorama and Mist Trail, and then they biked across the valley and then went up 4 Mile to go pick up their car. You could definitely do that, but that sounds really intense in my opinion, but it is an option. And this hike ended up being 15 miles for us with all of the stops and like whatever meandering we did, and with the walk from Curry Village to the beginning of the Mist Trail. But I will say on all trails, it says it's technically less than that. It was 15 for us. This was the longest hike that I've ever done and absolutely my favorite. The views are just unmatched. I would really recommend it to anyone who has decent endurance or is ready for just a really hard hike. We did not really prepare for this hike. I've ran 3 half marathons and I've been running, and so I just was like, how hard can hiking over a half marathon be? I've ran them before and it did kind of kick my butt. Thankfully, I recovered pretty quickly afterwards and it was definitely worth it. I would also really recommend either getting the free trial of All Trails or just paying for the premium version of All Trails. The trails are really well marked, but it was really nice to be able to actually look on an app and see exactly where I am and how many more switchbacks we had left on the 4 Mile Trail. We definitely used All Trails to our advantage that way multiple times. It just was really helpful to know that we were almost done, almost at Glacier Point. Wherever we were, it was so helpful to check. I would also really recommend to drink and eat way more than you think you need to. This is such an intense hike, and you really want to make sure that you're not dehydrated and that your body is well fueled. Also, start early, like I mentioned before, and just soak it all in. It is such a beautiful hike, and I hope you absolutely love it if this is a hike that you're considering doing in Yosemite. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you are new here, I would appreciate you liking this video so that it gets pushed out to other people who love to hike, love intentional living like I do. And if you enjoyed it, definitely make sure to subscribe as well so you can check out my next video. I'll make sure to link my Curry Village video here at the end in case you're interested in watching that. And I really hope to see you in the next one. Bye.